welcome back. So good news, I am now officially a BCBA. I took my exam on the 18th thanks to the continuing education system that the BCBA implemented. So, well, I already signed up for it like months ago, but because I took the test when they rolled out the continuing education, I was able to find out right away that I became a BCBA and that I passed my exam. And that's my dog, Momo. So it was really exciting. It was really nerve-wracking. It was kind of crazy. They give you like 4 hours, I think, or like 3 hours or something like that, but I finished it in like an hour and a half, which was like really nerve-wracking. And they didn't give you it right away. Like you have to like get all your stuff, you have to sign out, and then they give you a printed sheet of paper that says pass or fail. And thankfully I passed, and I'm so happy and grateful for that. And today I actually just had my first BCBA interview for an in-home therapy position. And I'm currently just a life coach at my full-time job, but I'm looking for a BCBA position at a part-time job. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, not gonna lie, to have this BCBA interview because, you know, I've always been in this therapist role, never in this like position of authority and making the shots and making the calls, and like here I was interviewing for it and I'm just like, can I get this done? But that made this idea for this video. And I decided I'm gonna make one about interview questions that as an RBT or a behavior therapist, ABA therapist, whatever you wanna call it, what you might like come across and how I would personally answer it. So I hope you find this helpful. All right, so all of my questions are pretty much gonna come from GlassDoor. They're gonna come from Google or something like that. And GlassDoor is great. GlassDoor is a conglomerate of all these different companies, their salaries, their reviews, everything like that. And they all put everything together and it helps you really decide, you know, am I getting enough for my position? Am I getting paid enough compared to the national average? What are the reviews for this company? What could I expect in the interview, et cetera, et cetera. So of course, GlassDoor is where I went to for my questions. And so I'm gonna try to answer it in the context if it was an in-home therapy interview. I think that if you were in a school, there'd be different questions that they might ask you in addition. But I think that the ones that GlassDoor is presenting is mainly for in-home therapy cases. So if you're interviewing for a school, good luck. But this is mainly, I think, for in-home therapy. So yeah. All right. First question is, why would you be a good therapist? What have you done in the past? What terms do you know about ABA? What intensifies behavior? What decreases it? What restraining techniques do I know? And what schedules do I know? That's a lot. That's a lot, but that's a lot of good stuff. So why would you be a good therapist? I would definitely talk about the traits that you have that make you a great therapist. Kind of cut and simple, but look for keywords like empathetic, responsible, patient, organized, great at communicating. You know, for like any position, you're probably gonna need to communicate with coworkers, with your supervisor, and parents, or anyone that, or caregiver. You know, and the communication's huge. Communication's huge, and you know, being organized is really important because you need to be taking data, you need to be graphing data, and having the client's best interest in mind is also a very big key point to make. What have you done in the past? Talk about your experience, whether it be a little bit or a lot. When I first interviewed for my in-home therapy case, I talked about how I had only field work because I went to Rutgers University and I did the field work in autism. And it was great. I worked at the Douglas Developmental Disability Center, which is highly, highly well known. And they gave me training for a semester. And I used that experience and I came to in-home therapy and they took me for it. And even if you have like small amounts of experience or minimal exposure, like most in-home companies will provide training. They are always looking to train and to better their employees, which is great. What terms do you know about ABA? I speak about keywords, reinforcement, extinction, punishment, applied behavior analysis in general, social validity. What intensifies behavior? I think it's kind of like a question that you could ask clarification for. I think it's a very big question, but punishment, reinforcement, and extinction all increase behavior. Intensify behavior, sorry, intensify is the key word here, intensifies. But I think very simply it could also be in reinforcement because reinforcement increases the frequency of behavior, which could also mean intensifying it. What decreases behavior? Punishment, extinction, reinforcement too, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty about, well, if you reinforce this behavior, this behavior will decrease. But then again, I think also extinction and punishment are like the basic answers there. What restraining techniques do you know? depends on you. What schedules do you know? And these could be differential reinforcement of other behavior, differential reinforcement of alternative, of incompatible, of high rates, low rates, and diminishing rates. So those are the more complicated reinforcement schedules. That's the one that they kind of listed on this question here. And basically, differential reinforcements, they talk about two different parts. They talk about extinction of the target behavior, behavior that you don't want to occur, and reinforcement of something else, whether it be alternative, another behavior, an incompatible behavior, low rates of the behavior, higher rates of the behavior, or diminishing rates of the behavior. Let me know if that makes sense. And you also have the four schedules of reinforcement. That's also really important to put in. Fixed interval, variable interval, fixed ratio, variable ratio. Good to know. And always know that, you know, variable always produces more steady responding. You always get that straight line compared to fixed, where you'll get that scallop. And variable ratio, you're more likely to get steady responding, because with intervals, you get a pause, because they know that a certain amount of time has to elapse before reinforcement is available again. So a ratio, you can attain your goal a lot quicker than just waiting, 30 minutes again. So you get a higher rate of responding for ratios and for variables. Okay, how do you respond to a child who's hitting you, punching you, scratching you, or spitting on you? And the answer to that question is, it depends. It depends, are you working with another therapist? And it depends, is this a new behavior? It depends if this is an older behavior. And the answer is to ask your BCBA or your supervisor what you should do. Simply because you don't really know what the function of the behavior is, you don't know the history of the behavior, and I'm assuming that if they're asking you this question, you're new. You're new to the case and you don't really know what's happening. So ask your BCBA how you should be proceeding. And especially if there's like another therapist on the case, you want to make sure that everyone's consistent across the team and they're doing things, implementing things the same way. So ask for training and call your BCBA, but because there's no right answer, because punishment isn't necessarily the right answer, extinction is not necessarily the right answer, and reinforcement's not the right answer either. It all depends. What does autism mean to you? Always a good question. Make sure you have that one answered in your head. What would you do if you had an angry child who didn't want to work? So there's two different behaviors here. I would definitely ask your BCBA, because you have anger and you have non-compliance. So you disrupt the behavior and a non-compliant behavior. And like I said, you don't know the history, you don't know the magnitude. This question doesn't tell you. You don't know if they're prone to throw things across the room when they're angry, or they're prone to kick you. So I would ask your BCBA, that'd be my default answer. And I would also just say, I would use behavioral momentum or a high probability sequence. So I would present 3 easy to follow directions and then reward each direction as they complete it. So rewarding compliance. And then I would present the target direction that they're having trouble with. And then if they comply, then I would reward that. What is autism? Also another good question to answer. And I think that one you don't need to really cut dry medical one. It could be something like, it is a deficit. It is a disorder where someone has social communication and not necessarily mental deficit, Specifically, according to Google, it is a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. You can also say what autism means to you. And I would say that when someone says there's one person, they met one person with autism, they've only met one person with autism. Autism is different from person to person, and then it depends on the client itself. This is a good question. How do you prepare for your first case with a company? What would you do to make sure you're hitting the ground running the first day with your client? Best answer, pairing. Spend the whole session pairing. Spend the whole session establishing a rapport with you and your client, establishing that you are the bringer of all good things. You are the #1 reward. You have all the treats and goodies in your pocket. You were awesome, you were fun, you were cool. Bringing in enthusiasm, doing novel activities with them, doing whatever they want, just being super, super rewarding to them and showing that you can give all the rewards that they want. That's what you should be doing during your first couple sessions. And also introducing yourself to family, making them comfortable with you, and just establishing your role in general. And there just seems to be like a lot of situational questions and like experiences about your past, which makes sense, and obviously speak to that if you can. Some places also do a in-person interview where you have to do a mock. So I know that like they mocked me working with a kid during like sitting at a table, and they would do errors, and I had to demonstrate how I would go about doing an error correction. So just practice simple skills like that if you have, or just go over in your head how to run a discrete trial instruction, how to go over and do incidental teaching. But I'm sure it won't be anything too crazy. And it's also really important that you go into the interview with questions yourself. So for in-home therapy cases, I would really recommend that you ask, how many cases do therapists typically take on? Are they typically on the weekends? What is the pay? What is the turnover rate in the company? So how often are they like hiring new people? Because that's really important. If they're hiring people constantly, then you have an issue. Or ask how long do cases go unstaffed? That could also be a big thing too. I also like to ask how many cases they have in my surrounding area, because for me personally, I don't want to drive more than 20 minutes away, which is like maybe 10 miles. So if they don't have any cases within my radius, there's no point in me joining their company. And most smaller companies are pretty good about that. They'll be specifically looking for specific townships, and that's what they'll interview you for. Larger companies are more like, yeah, whatever, like you can come and look at our case list, which is also pretty helpful too, not gonna lie. Ask about training that they provide. Do they have like in-person training, webinar training? How often is it? Do they offer supervision? Whether you be looking for it to be an RBT, a BCBA, like, do they offer that? And do they compensate for that? You know, compensate for you to be a better professional. And I would also definitely ask, what is communication like between BCBA and therapists? Like, is there a special platform? Do people usually text? People use WhatsApp? Is it email? Attire to wear at sessions. Some places are really chill. They're like, you can wear sweats. Some people are like, you need to be really professional when you go in. And just generally ask like how many programs are typically present per learner. That way you kind of know what you're dealing with and what kind of behaviors the learners typically have, or the age groups. If you're really well versed in young children, but they only have teens, then that might either be great for you, or you might be something that you do not want to even delve into yet. So just kind of think of like nitpicky questions to ask that you might not think about, that would be pretty important when deciding to take the job or not. But I apologize for this long video, and I hope that this was helpful. I'm sorry that they were mainly situational questions and that I couldn't really find too much on GlassDoor for, but hopefully this means that you will be super well prepared and that you will be super awesome. Just remember to practice your answers in front of a mirror, in front of your friends, in front of your cat, your dog, anything. Like practice, 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 and ace that interview. Good luck.